Thanks for tuning in to the Mission Matters podcast, where we feature successful, mission-driven leaders committed to creating a positive change in the world. Our mission with this channel is to inspire other leaders by providing industry insights, new ideas, and inspiring stories from the pros.
All right, welcome back. I'm Paul Fyth, host of the show where I talk with leaders heading up mission-focused organizations, leading from the heart, always, right? Inspiring others and making a difference in our communities far and wide. I just added that last part just now. This episode is sponsored by Paul Gregory Media, a certified B Corporation. To learn more about what Paul Gregory Media does and what a B Corporation is, I don't know. I should know, right? I do know. Of course I don't. Visit paulgregorymedia.com to learn more about that. I always say, well, most of the time I say, I am so excited about this particular episode, but this time I really mean it in such a way that I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity that I've admired for many, many years. Her name is Karen Wells. She's the Chief Operating Officer of Make-A-Wish. And help me out, Karen, is it Make-A-Wish America or Make-A-Wish Foundation?
Make-A-Wish America, yeah,
America.
Which is our national office.
National office. Okay, so you've been there for over 2 years, with the last year, 3 months or so, as the Chief Operating Officer, correct?
Yeah, I started actually as our Chief Strategy and Diversity Officer in 2023, and then took on the role of Chief Operating Officer at the beginning of 2024. So I'm 2.5 years or so now with Make-A-Wish.
Wow. Yeah. And looking at your LinkedIn profile, I mean, starting with, as far as what's on your LinkedIn profile, starting with the VP of McDonald's, then having your own franchise with the Goddard School, then on the Bridge communities. I mean, quite the pedigree, quite the career you've had. So welcome to the show. I can't wait to learn more about your journey.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. And I know you and I have been talking about having this conversation. So I'm so excited, and listening to the folks you've already brought on the show. Certainly hope I can contribute in some way today.
And I'm going to apologize because you are sort of an idol of mine. So if I fawn a little bit over you, don't be embarrassed. I'm just really looking forward to.
Oh, I didn't know all these things. I'm so honored to be here. Now you put a little pressure. So I hope to not.
No pressure. I mean, and it's because I heard you do a keynote talk at the Giving New Page Valapalooza event in 2023, I think it was. And it's the first time I heard your story, and I was just so inspired by it. And then, of course, when I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, I saw this thing about the sharecropper ancestry history, and that really touched me as well, because you talk about your pride and the challenges your ancestors faced, and out comes this beautiful being. So let's just start with the journey. I'm going to stop fawning for a minute and keep myself in control. Tell us about your journey. Go back as far as you want, but what led you to this career in nonprofits, and what led you to eventually Make-A-Wish America?
Well, thank you for the intro. And I wish I could tell you I had this thought out plan that would land me here in front of you today, but I really didn't. I come from very, very humble beginnings. My mother was my shero. I always say she had an 8th grade education, raised 7 children in the home, 3 sets of twins. She had a total of 10 children. I'm the youngest of the last set of twins. And we were in rural North Carolina. So the post that Paul was referring to was my post on the last day of Black History Month, that I wanted to just share a picture of a sharecropper's home, because as far as I can go, and I'm still trying to go even further, my great-grandfather was a sharecropper and had 3 generations of families living in about 700 square feet in rural North Carolina, and descendants of slaves there in North Carolina as well. And then there was my mom. And so I just consider myself really blessed. And I'm just so not confused about that. I really am. I have had mentors that have guided me. I have had shoulders that I'm standing on, trailblazers in front of me. And I think the thing that kept me going throughout my journey of navigating poverty as a child, then playing basketball, mixed reports on whether I like that sport or not. But if you'd like to learn more, I'm happy to share that. But it was a means to an end, because I ended up getting, I was a scholar athlete, Division I school, Xavier University in Cincinnati. And had I not had that opportunity, I don't know that I would have been able to go to school. I am a 1st-generation college graduate, and I don't take that lightly at all. But my motivation, when I think about my journey and my family, was to not be poor. I wish I could say that I thought I was going to be, vice president of anything. I didn't even know that role existed. I just wanted to work hard that I could help so that I could help my family, help my mother live a life that she was able to live in her latter years that she wasn't in her former years, as well as have a foundation for my children so that they would not live what we lived. And that clearly was the foundation of my work ethic, really. The rest of it, I did work hard, so I'm not going. Everyone always says, "Don't say you didn't work hard." I did work really hard, but I also had so many people supporting me and showing me the way. And so, from college, I started out in sales for an M&Rs. I work for major brands and major organizations. I don't know how that happened, but every place I've been, they've been first in class in their space, first or second, mostly first. And so that piece, I think, is just a remarkable way to learn in the nonprofit, for-profit space. And so went from college to the for-profit world, M&Rs, a small stint there. And I was trying to sell McDonald's some Snickers bars on the front counter. They said no to that, but they invited me to come in. And 20 years later was this career between marketing, operations, innovation, and strategy. As an officer there. So, which was great. And then I off ramped. So many people don't know that I left really at the brink of about to be promoted to a higher level, senior vice president. And I realized that I needed to be home for my teenage children. And so I would say teenage years are even more difficult than the former years, quite frankly. And so when I came home, had a chance to spend time with my children, as well as take a detour and start in the entrepreneurial world as franchisee and owner operator of the Goddard School for early childhood development. So McDonald's was the number one franchisor in food service. And then I became a franchisee of the number one franchisor of early childhood development. And so from franchisor to franchisee, two totally different worlds. I will tell you that. But my McDonald's experience prepared me for that role. And that's where I discovered this passion. I knew it with my mom, but this passion for helping children and families and seeding into the lives of the next generation. And so at the Goddard School was really infant through 8 years old. So we served hundreds of families and watched them. I mean, some of the children we served are now in the 8th and 9th grade, which is insane. But I just started to discover my love and passion for helping families and children. And when we sold the business, to be able to go to Bridge Communities, where I was on the board there for several years, then I took time off because we had a small business. And I could have never written this script in a million years that I would be able to have these experiences that are so vastly different and yet so much the same. And work for an organization that I volunteered for and had a passion for, because the families at Bridge was my family growing up. I wish we had a Bridge Communities that provided transitional housing for families facing homelessness, an apartment for 2 years, rent-free, with mentors to help you. And, you could save money like that. I don't think they would have had an apartment big enough because my mama had said 7 kids, but that would have been an amazing opportunity for us. And so it just fueled that passion from when I grew up that I could contribute in some small way to families reaching self-sufficiency. And that journey continues with Make-A-Wish. And so working with families and children once again, and helping them in a traumatic situation with a critically ill child. So I wish I, had more I could share with that journey. I think the theme throughout is the foundation of my faith and those that have come alongside me and have supported me, and really leaning into helping other people and servant leadership.
It almost sounds like, though, there was a certain entrepreneurial mindset in you, right, with owning the business and trying to sell the candy bar to McDonald's. But also, I like the fact that you really didn't know what you wanted or what you really liked and enjoyed until you were serving children and families at Goddard.
Yeah, it really was true. And I think, and even that, owning a business is hard, as you probably know. And we had some lean years, particularly we built the school from the ground up. And so, those first 3 years, you're building clientele and you're building families and you're building a reputation. And my ex-husband, my husband then had a kidney transplant during that time. So there was a lot happening.
Mm.
But at the nucleus of that, between making sure that you didn't catch a cold because there's a lot of little germs there in a childcare area, but in between all of that, the thing that really I got a lot of delight and hope from was working with the families and seeing the children grow. Like the Goddard School is a school, curriculum based. I mean, we did science projects with 3-year-olds. They were dissecting frogs and understanding the heart and learning to read at a third grade level by the time they left pre-K. So it was really much a school. Oh yeah, the Goddard School is an amazing brand. And so it was really an opportunity to see that level of growth. It was, and to see the parents' appreciation and to know that they're dropping children off in our care. That is a huge and scary responsibility. And so I could not have weaved that together if I had tried to write it out on families and children.
I'm just curious, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but what made you decide to buy a franchise for Goddard in the beginning, in the first place?
So I have to give my ex-husband a lot of credit on that. I really thought that I knew a lot because McDonald's teaches you the basics of everything. I think McDonald's is the foundation of the type of leader I am today because I had an opportunity to, lead in so many different departments and travel around the world and all things I would have never dreamt of. So I was foundationally ready to go. But the original plan was, my mistake was that we would own this business and I would be home eating bonbons, waiting for the kids to come home from school. And Grundy my ex-husband would be at the school and I could do, some light paperwork at home. Now, the one thing that I missed in all that is that just is not what happens. And I don't know how I missed that as close as I was to watching new owner operators come. I don't know how I had that gap, but I did. And so the work in those first 3 or 4 years was harder than I could have ever anticipated, and 2 teenage children growing up. But I had the flexibility to be home and do what I needed to do when I needed to do it. So I felt really confident that we had, the experience to run a franchise because of all of the roles I had at the McDonald's Corporation.
I think you just summed up entrepreneurship in a nutshell. And I don't know if you even knew that.
What I say?
You've got the flexibility that you wouldn't have anywhere else, but everything else is infinitely harder.
Oh my gosh. I mean, by leaps and bounds. And you want to go in with enough capital. Sometimes folks don't think about that. We were fine. Thank goodness. I think because those lean years, you have to anticipate and know the financial piece of it too, but you're on 24/7. I think that's the piece that we took for granted. When you own it, you're on, and we're taking.
Oh yeah, because you're your own boss, but every parent is your boss.
That is correct. All 120 plus of them. And then we had 25 degree teachers that were in the building as well. And, education is just a little different than corporate America, just a tiny tad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. So it was good. It was, I won't, there were some hard years, don't get me wrong, but man, it was such a big part of my journey. I think it aptly prepared me for the role that I'm in. It was so complemented by the journey at the McDonald's Corporation, prepared me for the Goddard School, and Goddard School really prepared me for the role that I'm in now. I just think there's just so much synergy.
Wow, that is quite the tale. And for the McDonald's Corporation, were you in the Oak Brook office?
Oh yeah. So I started in the regional office in Raleigh in marketing, and then I was selected to be in an accelerated operations program. So as I describe it, I took off my acrylic nails and corporate attire and put on a uniform and worked in the restaurants in an accelerated program, ran a restaurant, was a supervisor, and then ended up being a regional VP for about $1 billion in revenue.
Oh, wow. Wow. Mm-hmm. So that experience combined with Goddard prepared you for Bridge, which prepared you for Make-A-Wish. Wow. It's kind of like that zigzag way
It is.
Okay. So tell us about Make-A-Wish. What is Make-A-Wish for people who don't know what it is? And I know it's such a touching and emotional.
It really is. So Make-A-Wish, we're celebrating our 45th year. of granting life-changing wishes for children with critical illnesses. And oftentimes, many people don't understand the power of a wish. It's not just a nice thing to do. It is really a part of the healing journey of a child and their family that's facing a critical illness here in the U.S. So globally, we grant wishes globally. I work for our U.S., the U.S. part of that, and we've granted 390,000 of the 15,000 wishes that have been granted since we started granting wishes back in 1980.
Wow, the lion's share. That's half.
Yeah, for sure. We've been around.
Cool.
So a lot of it is right here in the U.S., but it's all a big part of we want every child around the entire globe, every eligible child to be able to have a life-changing wish. So we granted about over 16,000 wishes, of 16,300 wishes here in the U.S. Now we have a national office. It's fully remote, but our headquarters is in Phoenix, Arizona, and we work with 57 chapters around the U.S. It's a federated model, not much different than a franchise model. Very similar. So it's a federated model. We have 57 chapters, 57 CEOs in those chapters that are on boots on the ground, granting wishes every day. Our national office supports all of our celebrity wishes, our Disney wishes. Nearly half of our wishes are Disney wishes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So for the math people out there, we have 50 states. There's 57 chapters. So who's getting the extra chapters?
There are some, actually, there's one chapter that's 3 different states. And then there are some states that have 3 different chapters. Okay. So it's according to the geography. And it was, Make-A-Wish was very entrepreneurial when it started. I mean, it kind of took light. And then if there were local folks in different areas of the country that said, we want to grant wishes too, then they were able back then, a lot easier than to open up a chapter. And then we settled right here at around 57.
Okay.
57. Yeah.
Okay.
And that includes the U.S. territories as well. So it's not just the states.
What is a qualified child?
So a qualified child, there are several critical illnesses that qualify to be granted a wish. A majority of them are cancer patients that are going through that process. We also do, there's mostly every transplant is eligible for a wish. There's some very specifics when we look at children with sickle cell or children with CF. It really is a very scientific criteria. We have a national medical advisory board of pediatric doctors that advise us and look at all of the conditions that we're looking at, and we review them. We just did a major study, prevalence and incidence, to see what children are we missing in all of the conditions that are eligible. And are there any demographics? Are there any areas of the country, rural, urban, that we're missing in granting the wish of a child? So there is a little bit of science that goes into eligibility, but it is based on the data, the medical data that's out there on what is defined as a critical illness.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question that I think people are going to think about. They don't have to be terminal, correct?
They do not. May I please dismiss that myth? They are not. Terminal is not the criteria. Critical illness is the criteria. And we have so many alumni. We refer to children as the WISH kids and WISH families. And then we have alumni, which are those families that went through the WISH program and they're out, great jobs, musicians, actors, actresses, doctors. We have one doctor that's on the board for the Wisconsin chapter. She was a WISH child. And the doctor who helped her and referred her is still involved in the Wisconsin chapter. Mm. And now she, who works in oncology, is now on the board. That is the journey that a WISH alumni can have because the impact of a WISH, and I was looking at just some recent statistics. This is what medical providers say. 9 out of 10 say a WISH increases compliance with treatment. 8 out of 10 report that the WISH is a necessary part of the child's treatment journey, because in a wish, there is hope, and there is joy, and there is strength. And we know that those are the things that we hear over and over again. And the power of hope is something that you almost can't measure, but we see it each and every time with a child. Do we lose some children in the process? Sure. But that is not, Make-A-Wish is not about terminal children. It's about critically
It's
ill
an important
children.
distinction.
Yeah.
And I got to imagine that journey is not isolated. It sounds like the impact of a wish is so life changing that I could see that story about that person going on to become an oncologist or whatever. Yeah, we probably have dozens of those stories.
Many, hundreds,
Yeah.
thousands. If you think about 390,000 wishes, we have thousands of those, dare I say, that of families who have just been very blessed, to have a wish and just very grateful, regardless of faith. It just has to do with, we don't really care about the lived experience of the child or family. What we care about is it a critical child that's eligible for a wish? We're going to try to remove every barrier so that child can get the life-granting wish that they want. I have to share a couple. One is, so I work for the national office, but I also volunteer for our local Illinois chapter. Shameless plug. If you want to volunteer, we need volunteers. Great CEO, Stephanie there in our local Illinois chapter, one of our largest chapters in the US. Anyway, so my job as a volunteer is to do wish discovery. So and that is after a child becomes eligible, then volunteers help the child discover their wish. So my job is to be the person after they talk to the chapter as a volunteer to say, listen, what would you like to be? If you were to be anything in the world, what would you like to be? If you were to go anywhere in the world, where would you like to go? If you were to meet anyone in the world, who would it be? If you could be anything in the world, what would it be? And it is phenomenal. The smiles, the dreaming. Disney is the most popular of all my wish discoveries so far. But there are so many cool and unique other wishes. Many children wish to do something for their community, or one child wished to create a path on a beach so that wheelchairs, she wasn't in a wheelchair, but so that wheelchairs could, children and families in wheelchairs could get to the water, because oftentimes they'd have to stop at the parking lot. If you think about it, there's typically paths. Yep. So her wish wasn't about her, but it was about how she could impact the lives of others. And I will tell you, that's a story we hear over and over again. And I was buying a car because my car kind of was on its last leg, but still it was running, but we were just investing a lot in repairs. And I'm sitting in the car dealership, which, takes hours to purchase a car. And so I was sitting in the car dealership by this family that we had not said anything for, 2 hours. So our salespeople leave. The gentleman's really nice. And he's like, hi, what's your name? I shared my name. I said, hi, what's your name? And he told me his name. And then, of course, in typical middle-class fashion, we went straight into, so what do you do? Or where are you from? And so I shared my story. I was in Lamont at the time. And I said, I'm from Naperville and I work for Make-A-Wish. And I would say he was in his late 40s, maybe early 50s.
Okay.
Began to cry immediately. I'm like, what is happening?
Right there in the dealership.
Right there. And I said, what, is everything okay? Tell me more. What's going on? He said, my son was a wish kid. We just came back from Hawaii. It was the most life-changing event that we've ever had. The way the wish team treated our family. And he was like, wait. I want to get my wife on the phone. So he calls his wife. Like, we're just sitting there. And I said, what did it really mean to you? And his wife just said, it was just a slice of normal. Because when you're going through the journey of trauma for a child, there's just so much. Those families, the children and the children themselves just go through so much. And he just began to weep. His son was granted a wish right before COVID, but couldn't take it until after COVID. And he wanted to go back to school. And so they finally went. He's 20 now. He took it, I want to say he was 18 or 19, second year college, fully recovered from cancer, was diagnosed when he was 15. And they just said their lives have just never been the same. I can't tell you, Paul, how much that happens.
Wow.
And he thanked me. I had nothing to do with the wish. Right. I always feel, right. I want to thank the chapter. I mean, I'm a part of the wish family, sure. But they see, all of us as a part of the solution.
Yeah. It wants to express how much the organization meant to his family.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And it happened so much.
Wow. That's got to be one of the most fulfilling parts of the job.
It's just amazing. And even with, I've done wish discovery with 3-year-olds, with 4-year-olds, with 13-year-olds. um, with children that have been nonverbal, and the experience is the same. It's just a day in the life to just dream and have hope.
Do we even think of this, Karen, as a job?
I know, right? It's a calling. It's a mission. It's for
Yeah.
sure. It's sure. And I think that's the thing in mission. Again, I did a speech or a talk one day on the difference between nonprofits and for-profits. I think it was at the Glen Ellen Chamber. And there are a lot of things that are alike. I mean, for-profits have missions too. We all have
Yep.
missions. We
Sure.
actually all have income statements. Nonprofit is a tax status, really. I mean, if you think about it. But what is unmatched is the passion for the mission, the dedication, not just of volunteers, but those, like you said, that are getting paid. It is something literally to behold. It really is. To see how much, whether you're on staff or not, or a volunteer, so committed to the mission and the families we serve.
Yeah.
And at Bridge too.
It's kind of the reason why I'm drawn to nonprofit organizations and why our agency is devoted to nonprofit organizations. I've never seen such passion, emotion, dedication. I've never seen an executive director that didn't have 40 balls juggled in the air, and they can't handle that, but they do.
Yeah, I think at Bridge, at Make-A-Wish, at all the organizations I'm honored to serve, I've been a big fan of Loaves and Fishes here locally too, and sit on the board there. And families, again, children and families is mostly who's being served, but more specifically, it just there is no rock unturned. There's just no rock unturned to find a solution for the families we serve. There's no rock unturned to figure out how can we make what that child and that family has designated as a wish, a life-changing wish, come true. And it's amazing to watch and be a part of.
Can't even imagine the emotions and the intensity of fulfilling that wish and what that's like.
We have 20,000 volunteers in the U.S., so it does take a village for us to make a wish come true.
Wow. And you said the Make-A-Wish America is celebrating 45 years?
45 years.
My gosh.
45 years. It sure started off with a little boy named Chris Grecius, and his dream was to be a deputy sheriff. And his mom and some local community members in Phoenix, Arizona, Chris did pass away. He's actually buried here in Illinois. And things have started from there. And you know how most things start in a basement or start in a small room. And with the founders were just with us. If you saw that post on LinkedIn, the founders were just with us at our recent national leadership meeting. And to hear them tell the story, and everyone has a different take on the story. The mom, obviously, Linda, the mom of Chris Grecius, but what their passion was, they were all working full-time job. One was one of our founders was an undercover, military ops information, top secret guy. I mean, so there's just so much. And they did all this in their spare time. And they were sitting in front of a room of, I was probably 60 or 70 of us, CEOs from all over the country, all of our senior leadership team, directors. They started it. And that's why we sat in that room. 600,000 wishes later.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's quite an accomplishment. I kind of remember, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember growing up watching commercials for Make-A-Wish. Is that just in my imagination? Did they have an advertising campaign on NBC or?
Today we still do. We've never had a media budget that I'm aware of, but we've always had people interested in the stories, TV stories. And so you probably saw a lot of wishes on TV, but it was because the local channels thought it was a great story. And our founders, man, they were making waves back then and telling the story, and it was picked up around the country, the power of a wish.
I'm sure.
Most of what you see even today is media that the media has picked us up and wanted. So
it's not paid media; it's picking up a story. Maybe that's how I saw it. I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, so there might have been a New Jersey or New York, which we picked up the New York stations. So it was probably an affiliate.
Yeah, for sure.
that was
For
making
sure.
some press. Well,
Mhm.
Carrie, this is all very interesting. I'm going to just kind of turn this back to you for a second. You don't get to where you are and do all the things, all the great, amazing things that you've done without sidestepping a few landmines. And I'm sure there's some challenges along the way. I know we were talking a little bit before we started recording this. Um, any recent challenges that you either overcame or still struggle with that might help other nonprofit leaders out there?
First, to all the nonprofit leaders, again, thank you for your leadership. And as a fellow nonprofit leader, and formerly in the role at Bridge, I know how difficult it can be and yet rewarding all at the same time, which is why so many of the nonprofit leaders have been in their space for a minute or two. I mean, have had some really good tenure. And I believe that in these last, I would say, 6 to 7 years that I've been in the space has just been the ability to manage the rapidly changing external landscape. And I'm not just talking about the last few weeks that we've been in, and certainly our last few months. There's been obviously a lot of volatility and a lot of different changes, but just in general, I started leading in the nonprofit space in 2020. We all know what happened in 2020, and I've been in the space since then. And I don't know if it was different before I came, but there is this new normal is just a lot of managing a lot of different variables at the same time, many things we cannot control, many things that impact the mindset of a donor, many things that impact the economy. Yes, the whole world has to manage through that, but I so admire because the nuance of stewardship and donors and grants and external landscape and understanding, how that's going to impact not just our budgets, but how's it going to impact the families or the mission is just, it's a lot and it takes really gifted people to do it. And I'm so excited to be working around a lot of really gifted people who are managing through this ever changing, rapid landscape. I was sharing with you, I was reading in a recent Forbes article, and I used to talk about VUCA, which is the volatility, uncertainty in the environment. But there's a new framework called the BANI framework: brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. Like that's the new language, which is the evolution of the VUCA, I think it is VUCA environment. And it just highlights the unpredictable pressures leaders face in challenging our beliefs about control and a predictable workplace. I have yet to see that in my leadership in this space yet. But managing through all of those different obstacles is what I think I admire most about mission-based organizations. Corporate America is doing it the same. Do not even get me wrong. They have it's not like they are not subject to all of this.
Yeah.
I just think in the nonprofit space, and you tell me what you think, Paul. I just think in the nonprofit space, there's a different level of intensity because of the dynamics in how we're managing through budgets and donors and grants, et cetera, and our dependence on the community and volunteers to keep the mission alive.
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions on this, I guess. I think the vulnerability is different on a different level, right? And corporates get their money from their constituents, their consumers. Nonprofits don't, right? The consumer is their beneficiary. So you were talking earlier about, having some lean years when you were at Goddard.
Yeah.
And that volatility in lean years, grants come and go. You could have a 3-year grant, but that's not forever. That's not in perpetuity. Right. So how do you make up for the $1 million grant that you got from Bill Gates Foundation when that goes away? So there's a lot of volatility and there's a lot of vulnerability in that, I think, because not every nonprofit makes $4 or $40 million a year. There's a lot of nonprofits under $1 million a year. And that's tough.
It really is. So, and again, I worked in corporate. You have to please the customer. You want to keep the customer satisfied. So you could have some bumps in that journey. And we know that there's some experience in that now. And so what it comes down to, if I could lead with this one note. So I've had a chance to lead in the for-profit space and the nonprofit space and as an entrepreneur, and I still, I I have my small consulting business. Don't have a lot of time for it, but still doing some keynote and leadership work out of that.
Please don't stop that.
Oh, I won't. I won't. I promise I won't. It brings me joy, the keynote part of it, and storytelling. So I hope not to. But one thing that is the same throughout no matter where I'm leading, there's two things that are the same. One is leaders have to be able to lead in this level of volatility. Leaders have to be able to expose themselves to professional development so that they can continue to grow and be able to manage through circumstances that are very different than they used to be. That was the same whether I was at McDonald's as an entrepreneur right now in the space that I'm in. And then our connection to our people and our staff and our constituents. I do believe there's a different level in the nonprofit space, but when I think about it across the board, I had to be able to, lead teams that felt good, that were galvanized, felt welcome, felt included, felt respected, felt engaged, and wanted to do the work. And Make-A-Wish has been recognized by Gallup for our engagement scores. Our employees has a high level of engagement. I think it has to do with the mission in a great deal. But I just think that is consistent. People, leadership, professional development, engagement. It doesn't matter, whether I'm in a nonprofit, for-profit, or as a small business owner.
Wow. Spoken like a true professional. I think we could talk here for hours. And
we could. I'm having so much fun.
Gosh. But thank you for being on the show, and thank you for imparting your wisdom. I think there's a lot of leaders out there that could learn so much from your experience. And so that's why I kind of blurted out, don't stop the keynotes, because they're so informative, and just sharing your true authentic self and your journey alone. And here we go fawning again. So sorry for embarrassing you, but it's what connected us, really. Thanks to, who was it now from Giving to Page? He's a board member, Jonathan.
Jonathan, yes. Jonathan is a great friend and a great supporter of mine, for sure.
Yes, he's a great guy, great friend, and I'm happy to serve on the board with him. So, little mention to him.
Yes.
And all the fine folks at Giving to Page. Thank you for keynoting the Volapalooza last year. We are bringing it back, I think. I heard.
Oh, nice.
There's a rumor going around.
Well,
can't say too much about it yet, but I think there's a chance that it might come back in 2025.
Good. It was good participation too, and great engagement, I thought.
Yes. So we have a new person at the helm, Taylor Endicott, who's doing such a fine job there. So thank you again. I maybe we'll talk more after we stop the recording.
Sure. I have time. Awesome. I absolutely have time. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun. And if there's anything else I can do to help, please let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Till next time, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Mission Matters podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.